This episode of Phone Booth Fighting Frank is brought to you by Freshly.com, delivering food right to your door, already prepared, always fresh ingredients, never frozen, and a great way to eat healthy and save a lot of time in the process. We've got Freshly.com coming to our doorsteps now, and I know that for you, with the big family and all the activities and all the things that kids are involved in, time is at a premium. And there's also the part about how you're a professional athlete and you have to watch what you eat.
True. Utmost convenience keeps you from making bad mistakes. A lot of times you get behind the 8 ball, you don't have enough time. First thing we all turn to is fast food. So the fact that this can be quicker and easier because it's sitting for you in your fridge, it only takes 2 to 3 minutes to prepare. Really, it's a no-brainer. It's
all natural ingredients cooked by chefs with the help of nutritionists. And I tell you what, there's nothing that makes you feel smarter than being in a hurry, running to the fridge, grabbing one of those pre-prepped meals, throwing it in your bag, and you got lunch with you, or you got your dinner on the go. And like Frank said, you avoid those fast food drive-thrus, and that is so important. No artificial preservatives and gluten-free meals, folks. Here's how you can save some money at Freshly.com because you are a Phone Booth Fighting listener. Go to Freshly.com, put in the promo code PhoneBooth at checkout, and you're going to get $40 off your first 2 orders. Free shipping on every single order, by the way, and that's 6 meals cooked by Freshly chefs for only $39 with the promo code PhoneBooth, and they know you're going to like it, so basically they make you the same offer again. Your second set of 6 meals, same deal. Promo code PhoneBooth, you get all 6 for only $39. Go to Freshly.com, enter the promo code PhoneBooth, and enjoy the greatness of Freshly. Frank, this episode is also brought to you by Low T Nation. LowTNation.com, taking care of many a Phone Booth Fighting listener over there on a weekly basis. And this is for the fella who, maybe doesn't have quite as much energy as he used to have when he was a tad younger. Maybe feels a little sluggish, a little slow on the draw. And that's where Low T Nation comes in. And what you do is you go to lowtnation.com, you call the phone number. A couple of Phone Booth Fighting listeners who run things over at Low T Nation will answer your call, and they'll be happy to talk to you. Consultation is free over the phone. They will put you in touch with a lab in your area to see if you are a candidate for the Low T Nation treatment. And let's say you are, and I know a lot of our listeners, as it turns out, they are. Then what happens?
Well, at that point, you call up to talk to the doctors or talk to, Jason and talk to Brandon. If they find out that, through a preliminary consultation that you may be set up for the next step, they could talk to your general practitioner, also guide them through it. That's something they're very good at. And they'll set you up an appointment to get blood drawn. Once that blood is drawn and they evaluate it and everybody's on board, if it's something that's necessary for you to do, then they can get you the right medication to bring you back up to your optimal levels of health. And it's conveniently shipped to your front door once a month, so no more visits, no more effort on your part besides being consistent with your dosages.
We hear from Phone Booth Fighting listeners on a weekly basis who are realizing the benefits of Low T Nation, and you could be next. What you need to do, go to lowtnation.com, call that phone number, free consultation over the phone, and from there, everything just arrives at your doorstep. It couldn't be easier. LowTNation.com, tell them Frank and Richard sent you. All right, Frank, let's get it started. I tell you what, I'll just pull back the curtain here. A lot of nights here in the bunker, deep within the bowels of stately Mare Manor in suburban Las Vegas, from which we emanate, we have a run sheet in front of us. We've made some notes, some things we're going to talk about. And not the case tonight, although we got a lot on the table. A whole lot of things have happened. So many that I thought, well, do I just jot all these down, or do we just kind of take them as they come? And I decided on the latter. So first of all, we got to figure out where we want to start here. I guess let's do this. Let me find out where you were this weekend. I'll tell you where I was this weekend because I had some weird stuff happen.
Oh, okay. Well, mine wasn't that weird. I had
okay.
long ass travel to Vienna for me.
Okay, let me just say, a lot of people to say, oh yeah, it was just a average weekend. I went to Vienna, Austria. That's not a lot of people's average weekend.
True, but mine didn't have too many. I didn't get left at any airports or get taken in the back room at any passport.
You weren't detained?
No detainments this time around.
Okay.
But I had to fly through San Francisco, so tripped up there, took an hour and a half, 2 or 3 hour layover, then a 12-hour flight to Istanbul, Turkey. And if you realize, if you look on the map, that means I flew past fucking Vienna.
Oh, how did that happen? Was this like a Spirit Airlines kind of deal?
I mean, hey, I was on a Turkish Airlines in the business class, so the travel was nice. It's just that for the timing to get me there and get me back, that was the best route to take. And so, as I'm looking at the thing, I'm like, oh man, I wish somehow they had a direct flight right to, make my life easier. But it is what it is. So stayed for about 3 or 4 hours in Istanbul, and then took off to Turkey, another 2.5 hour flight, landed there, and then, just hung out. Got to go see the sights a little bit. Big John McCarthy and Elaine were there, his wife, Herb Dean, Brian, got to hang out with them. And, at one point we all just jumped on a train and went into town in the center of Vienna and had some pastries and hung out.
So that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Okay, so obviously this is ACB work. You're over there doing commentary.
Some great fights that night. And ACB always puts on a phenomenal show. I'm happy to be a part of it.
How does that work with the referees? Are they, because I know John and Herb do a lot of the cards over there, and they're the two most well-known referees. Is that why? Is it just ACB needs to hire some referees, and so obviously they're going to go with the best? I guess there's not really is there a regulatory body involved?
There is. We actually work with the English Commission.
Okay.
Lee Doyle. They're a really good commission. Those guys, I'll tell you 2 different stories on why I respect the shit out of those guys. First of all, Herb Dean is pretty much the head referee for ACB. He actually now works with them exclusively, so that way he can help organize the other referees that also work, because they use a guy named Lucas sometimes, and then
no, I'm sorry. When you say he works with them exclusively, obviously he's still working with the UFC.
Yeah, he does. He'll go back and forth, but I mean, pretty much
Bellator.
If it comes down to a conflict, he goes the ACB.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, you'd be surprised
really
how little the UFC pays these guys.
Oh yeah.
Oh, to blow your mind.
Yeah.
Not to throw their business out there, but when Big John and Herb told me what still to this day, the UFC pays them per show.
Yeah.
If they had to buy their own ticket, let's put it this way, they would lose money.
Oh wow. Okay. So is this?
I mean, it's astronomically low.
Yeah.
Like we're talking like it barely breaks into the 4 digits.
Well, I don't mean to interrupt you, but hold your thought, because this interested me. You just sparked a thought in my head. So the way, I know that they are governed by, like in the States, the State Athletic Commission.
Right.
But I always assumed that pay was set by the state. It's set by the promotion? Really? Okay, so if I have but is there like a minimum? If I put on, I don't know.
We can have John call in and maybe he'll explain it if he wants to. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I remember I was sitting there and Herb and I were talking about money, and all the shows out there, the UFC pays the least.
Wow, I guess I just didn't realize that the shows had the ability to set their own price, which is, I guess makes it kind of competitive. Obviously, in the case of ACB, if you want the best, you can pay a premium.
So that's why they have John and Herb there all the time, and
Okay, I do know that over at we should find out about this too, because our own amateur promotion, Real MMA. We pay referees over there. I've never seen Big John or Herb, but we do use Steve Mazzagatti. He's over there. So I don't know how that works. That's interesting.
Yeah, and they're not very well taken care of.
Well, and I always knew that, and I'd never heard actual figures, but I knew that it certainly was not like anybody's getting rich doing that. Like it's, if anything, if you have the ability, like John and Herb have done, to sort of build their brand, they can build it off of the visibility, and then of course they can run their ref camps and stuff like that and make the money. But I just assumed that low pay was mandated by the state, that they're not paid. And now I wonder if that is the case with judges. Or
I don't know.
Yeah.
And I know that, for example, like the ACB goes to so many different countries that don't have their own commissions.
Yeah.
So they actually will pay the English commission to bring them there. So that way the commission will be their owning body. And if anybody thinks that there's a conflict of interest as far as bringing in the commission, the UFC also does that too, Bellator. And to tell you one of the stories, we're in Poland, right? And Poland, their rules on how the commissions there will work, you don't need to have a ringside physician. You could just have an EMT, you know, a paramedic, somebody who's basically, you know, an EMT1, you know, which, you know, in the States is not a lot of training compared to what a physician or a doctor would obviously receive. There could be an argument made that a very veteran EMT might be better at assessing concussions and abrasions better than, you know, some doctors, because really there's not a lot of rules on it. I mean, basically, as long as you have a doctor and a medical MD, I mean, shit, I guess technically you could be a gynecologist and sit cage side, you know, but you're still a physician, right? You're still a medical doctor. So we're there. Show's still started at 7, and it's not starting. 7:30, I'm up. I'm trying to figure out what's going on, and I can see the head of the English Commission standing there, Lee, and now he has several of people, the promoters there in Poland, the ACB brass, everybody's, you know, what's going on. And Lee's letting everybody know that, well, I don't know how they do it here in Poland, but we're not starting these fights until there's a doctor here. Took 45 minutes for them to get a doctor.
Wow. Did you have to get up and do stand-up and
No,
stuff to
he
entertain
sat there
the crowd?
just talk. No, he just didn't go live. So we're just sitting there.
Okay.
Yeah, people getting there, people breathless, angry. But this guy and the commission there stuck to their guns to where they, you know, I even told him, like, I walked up to him and he had his arms crossed and he's getting the evil eye from a lot of people that have invested money in this show going.
Yeah.
You can imagine, I mean, imagine like you got a Dana White or, you know, a Coker, you know, staring at you like, just start the show. It's the rules here. Just play by the rules here. And he's like, nope, I don't feel comfortable with that. That's not how we do it. And actually, Big John McCarthy walked over and kind of helped him out because he's like, I'm not refereeing without a doctor cage side. So there was a unification there, and I walked up to Lee, and he has, you know, a bunch of, you know, legitimately angry people staring at him, and I'm like, hey, buddy, I just want to let you know right now, I hella respect you, but God, I wouldn't want to be you right now.
But you know what? That's smart, because if they do it and nothing happens, nobody's going to hear about it. But if they did it and something happened, you would be famous for all the wrong reasons.
No, you're absolutely right.
That promotion.
That's you know, so the commission there. I mean, the English guys, Lee Doyle and that group, a bunch of great guys. Another story that lets you know how, like, I even one time told we had this conversation because something happened in one of the countries that we were at, where one of the commissioners. One of the, you know, the workers for the English Commission, there was a guy who kept stepping up and coaching cage side. Well, little did they know that this guy in the country that we were in was very well connected, you know, and so he wasn't somebody you tell no to. And so our commissioner's like, hey, man, you know, you can't, you know, keep it down. So he gets a dirty look from the guy. The guy goes to walk off, turns around, punches him in the back of the head. One of our other commissioners, maybe I can get them if they ever want to come on and talk about it. I won't say their names.
Yeah.
But he jumps to the rescue of his other guy getting hit. Like, hey, what are you doing? All of a sudden, all the guys, men, you know, that we weren't aware were there, snatched him up and started dragging him outside. We thought he was going to get killed.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, I mean, we're not killed, but, you know, it's looking bad. Like, as he said, his feet never touched the ground.
Yeah.
They ran out him outside, explained that this guy, who he was, how important he as a businessman, or, you know, he was. And so, you know, everything was okay. But I even told him, I'm like, hey, man, you know, we're in some crazy countries sometimes, you know, like, do you ever think you might want to know who's who, you know? But they're like, no, if you're not following the rules, you're not following the rules. I'm like, and that's why I love you guys. Yeah. That's the type of people that conquer the world. They're like, no fear. I'm like, all right, man.
So this guy was like the Conor McGregor of his village, just thinking he could just walk right up to the cage and corner and... Oh, boy.
Yeah. Wow. So the English Commission has to deal. I mean, we go into places, you know, language barriers and stuff, and the ACB, that's why Merriback, you know, hires these guys to keep them there, to keep everybody honest, to keep them on the straight, you know. It keeps protects the fighters. It protects the production. You know that there's no, you know, crazy back shit going on, because guess what? You know, at the end of the day, I mean, the ACB has to provide, just like just like you pay a fee to the commission and all the licensing, but you don't run them. You know, you don't own them. It's somebody else who's a separate entity who's going to make these decisions. So you don't have to sit there and go, well, you know, why did that guy win a decision? Like, hey, at the end of the day, they're their own commission, they're their own judges. It's separate, you know?
Yeah. Wow. That kind of behind the scenes stuff is fascinating.
Yeah.
You
well,
know,
a lot of times you got to go with me, man.
Yeah.
It's super cool to sit there and see, just because the ACB right now is what the UFC was, you know, in 2000s, you know, when I first started, where it was just a bunch of guys that love fighting. You know, Merriback, you know, Mr. Steve is done well, you know, and you know, he doesn't make his money in the ACB. You know, he's made his money, you know, basically, you know, rebuilding Chechnya after the war, organizing. I mean, the guy is just, you know, a brilliant businessman who was a martial artist when he was younger, loves martial arts, loves fighters. And, you know, the facility that he built, that's why I'm thinking I might go out there and train. It's one of the top facilities I've ever seen in the world. Like, you walk in, it's like something that a soccer player, a football player would be accustomed to. I'm like, wow. I mean, it is just, I mean, laid out. They have dorms. They have a dining hall that you go and you eat, you go train, a weight room. I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of interest that he has in it. So it's not like, you know, obviously I'm sure he doesn't want to lose money running the ACBs, but it's for the love of it. It's kind of like one of those things where it's like, hey, as long as it breaks even, you know, that's, I think, their mindset. And it's more of a passion. And that's what I like about it. I mean, you know, obviously, you know, the UFC right now, I feel, you know, when the Fertittas owned it, you know, I mean, and Dana still tries to be that way, you know, it was a passion, you know. I mean, the Fertittas make their money at station casinos, you know. They made their money selling it, but, you know, they didn't make their money in the UFC. You know, for a while there, they were losing money until Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonner,
Ultimate Fighter,
Ultimate Fighter turned it around. Man, afterwards, like about 6 months later, I'm sitting there with Joe Silva. He goes, "We almost got sold." That's how much under the wire. I think they were like 40 million in the hole at one point. And they're like, "Man, we're just losing too much money," but they loved it, so that's what they went through. Whereas now everybody's like, you know, the UFC seems different. I'm like, well, yeah, now it's being ran like a business, which I don't think that the WME or WMG, I always mess it up.
Oh, WME, wait.
WMI, right?
WME IMG.
I'll never get that right.
Yeah.
It'll be like 6 months from now. It's like when I used to say, follow us on.
Yeah, right.
Fuck if I know.
Right. The new owners.
Yeah,
That's
the
what
new
we call
owners.
them.
I'll just call them the new owners. I think that they're trying to run the UFC like a mainstream sport. And the more I sit back and realize, will never be a mainstream sport. MMA is never going to be baseball, football, basketball. And trying to think that we'll ever be there, it just isn't. You know what I mean? Like, people will go to a football game and not know who's playing, not know much about football, and still like buy a jacket and show up. It's like, oh, it's a thing. Our fans in MMA, we're a cult. Yeah. We have the most hardcore fans. Like, if you get a fan from our sport and a fan from another, our average fan knows more about MMA than the average baseball player knows about baseball. Yeah. I mean, we're just fanatics in our sport. We're diehards, but it's a cult following. It's never going to be a huge mainstream, I don't think. And I mean, I might be making some of our listeners mad, but I just don't think that we have that appeal to cross over to just be an everyday thing where grandma's showing up at it, whereas grandma still buys season tickets to go to her old college alma mater to watch the game. You know
That's the way I like it too. I mean, I think people need to be careful what they wish for when they talk about things getting too big.
The fact, you know what? I liked it back even better 10, 15 years ago when no one knew what the fuck I was talking about. When you said UFC, they're like, what? I kind of liked it. It was our own little thing. You know, now that it's gotten as popular as it has, everybody thinks that they're, you know, they have an insight in on it. But still, I love it when I hang out with the hardcore fans, you know, our true fans, people that listen to Phone Booth Fighter or the fighter and the kid, you know, like people that are on the, you know, inside, like it's enjoyable to listen and talk to because they're knowledgeable about the sport. I don't ever want to get to a point where someone comes up to me and they're a fan and they have no fucking idea what a Kimura is. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like, hey man, it's awesome. I came in, I want your autograph. I'm like, cool. So do you train? No. Do you know anything about the sport? Nah, man, it's fucking cool. I'm like, oh, you're just a bandwagon because everybody else thinks it's cool? No, that's not fun.
Yeah. And also once, I want it, here's how big I want it to be. I want it to always be big enough so that guys who fight can and girls can make a living doing it. It doesn't mean everybody's going to get rich, but I mean that's nice that we don't necessarily need people starving. But if they can make a living and have abilities to go out and get sponsors, for example, to be able to have a little cottage brand, but and also. I like having, a lot of people have complained about the number of fights. I don't necessarily complain about that because I don't like other sports, but I would like to have this. I'd like to have the option of if I want to see fights every week, I could. Doesn't have to be the same promotion every week. Just something somewhere every week if I can get that. But if you start getting a lot of money involved in things, and I mean, tens of billions of millions upon billions, that's where you can also get a lot of knuckleheadedness involved. That's where things start happening.
Here's my thing. I never want to make it to where our sport is so big that our stars of our sport go to the gym and have a fucking bodyguard or two with them. Do you know what I mean? Where you can go out and you see Max Holloway, but then all of a sudden there's 3 guys surrounding him. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just don't want that. You know what I mean? Like, I like the fact that, like right now I just went to Walmart to buy a car cover for the car we're working on, to throw it over the top, and like I walk in, the guy in the front's like, oh shit, it's Frank Mir. I take a picture with him wearing this. Like, I think that
Did your bodyguard take the picture while the two of you posed?
No, she was buying makeup.
Oh. Yeah.
And so, I think that that's cool still. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously Connor's in an whole other world. You know what I mean? He is that superstar, but at least he's the exception. You know what I mean? Like, he's just the one. Nobody else. I mean, shit, man, our heavyweight champ of the UFC fucking still works a fucking job over as a firefighter.
I like that.
I think that's cool. You know what I mean?
Too.
Like, he's just a Joe Blow. Like, we're all just normal guys. And I think that helps out too. Like, our youth realize it's like, there's so much mysticism and illusion in the entertainment world. Like, I think everybody thinks that everybody who's in a rap video lives in a $4 million house somewhere in Beverly Hills. I'm like,
set for life.
You know what? Those people don't live in those kind of houses. They might give you the illusion they do. They don't all take private jets everywhere. Most of them are, flying business, but not everybody's jumping in those situations. And if they do try to live that way, such a short period of time, you're making that kind of money usually. They're broke in a couple of years. And so I don't want our sport to be that big. I like the fact that we all walk around. You can see anybody, you know what I mean? You can walk in, Ryan Bader from light heavyweight champ of the Bellator. He's out at a restaurant with his wife and kids. You know what I mean? Like, there's Ryan. Hey, man, that's cool. Not sectioned off, not in a back room with 3 or 4 guys with sunglasses and earpieces. Hey, man, you got to leave the champ alone. I'm like, that's not cool.
Yeah.
And I think that'll hurt us. I think the fact that our sport loves us, that you go to a fight and you can see us walking through, at different assemblies, you see the fighters walking around. Hey, man, oh shit, there's John. John fucking Jones is right there,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the other thing too, I think that does is when you look at sports that are then you look at like team sports, football, basketball, stuff like that, people tend to be very loyal to a team, but not all the time necessarily to an entire league. And I think one of the cool things about fighting is that a lot of times there's just loyalty to the league. I mean, everybody's going to have their favorite fighter, but it doesn't mean that if they see somebody who isn't their favorite fighter, they're not still going to be engaged. They're not still going to be enthusiastic because they know that fighter is still a representative of the league that they enjoy. Well,
and I think what's going to happen, and actually that's why, like, Connor is good for the sport. I know the guy moronically jumped in the cage back in Ireland, but I'm sure the guy's in his off season. He's probably wasn't exactly sober and didn't make the best decisions. But for the most part, like, he's breaking barriers. Already, he fought outside the UFC. Now, it was a boxing match. But, I mean, think about it. That's what fighting does or boxing does all the time. You have the WBC champ, could also be the WBO and the IBF, or you have multiple champs in different weight classes and they can fight each other. And I think that eventually, because Connor kind of already broke that mold, you're going to get to a point to where, Bellator is going to have somebody, ACB might have somebody, UFC has somebody in different weight classes with the champs. And instead of being like, oh shit, they're never going to face each other because they're contracted separately, like how it was for a while there, like, Fedor and the heavyweights here in the UFC, for, when I was the champ, it's like, well, could you and Fedor ever fight each other? It's like, never going to happen because he's a champ there, I'm the champ here, or when, Vanderlei Silva was Vanderlei Silva over in Pride and he was at his peak. And then you had Chuck Liddell, who was his peak as a light heavyweight. Why couldn't they have fought each other? Why couldn't, at that time, Pride and UFC co-promoted together? Yeah. And I think that's actually where the future of the sport hopefully will go to, where you can have these big events, you know, where it's like, oh, we're going to co-promote and these two guys are going to clash against each other. And then you can have people that are multiple promoting champs.
WME IMG apparently has already gotten word that Frank Mir is having a hard time remembering their initials. They've changed their parent company to the name Endeavor.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate that.
That just happened last month. So
they knew. They kept hearing. They're like, Mir's struggling.
We can't have
They
that.
know when I commentate, I give everybody nicknames or short.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I almost burned my house down last night. The
meth lab went up.
Well, you know, it's funny. We have, you know, we're a blended family. And we're pet lovers, and so you put a couple of pet lovers together, and you get even more pets than the two people had individually. And so
you can't sneak into your house.
No.
If you did, I wouldn't want to see what Nala would do to you.
Yeah, everyone is aware. Everyone is aware. When it's funny, Sasha, we have of the dogs. We have 2 females and 2 males. And we have Nala, our pit bull, and then we have Sasha, who is our, she's kind of an English Shepherd mix, but she is she's the first responder. She's the voice that you hear first, because she likes to make the couch in the living room her domain, so she always likes to keep one eye on the door. Nala is, she sort of takes the Frank Mir approach, where she'll be sleeping on the bed, and she will respond if needed.
Right.
But she doesn't go to every call. No. She's kind of like, all right, let me know if it's really something serious.
If it's important and gets to be taken care of, I'll take care of it.
Then I'll show up and let him see me. Yes. But otherwise, you can handle it. Yeah. So, and then we have our little guy, Halsey, who is our Corgi Jack Russell mix, and he's got the little man syndrome. He has to let everybody know that he's a big dog. And then, of course, we have Mel, my other strong, silent type pit bull. So we got the pack of 4 dogs. But we also...
You still got to videotape Mel barking for me.
Oh, yeah, I will. It's hard.
I just want to see it.
It's hard to catch. He doesn't do it hardly very often in front of anybody.
But I've never even heard him make a noise.
No, he's usually silent. Have I shown you video of him playing wrestling with Nala?
No.
I'll show you some video of that, yeah, because he will wrestle with her, and both of them being pit bulls, they get real physical. It's
cool.
Funny, yeah. So I'll show you that. But so
how do you almost burn your house down?
Okay, yeah. So we have the 4 dogs, but we also have 5 cats. Now,
is there a limit on how many cats you can have?
Probably. But we have 5 cats because I had...
I don't know, man. There's some cat ladies out there.
I had 2. Jennifer had 3. And like the Brady Bunch, you know, we came together. But the thing is we are very, very clean. I mean, we are very neat people.
I've been to your home.
Yeah. So there is, you know, it's like having a lot of kids. There's a lot of cleaning that has to go on all the time and that sort of thing. And the way the house is, it's
not like having kids. Kids are way more destructive. And
well, yeah, that's probably true because they have thumbs. Yes. They can do way more.
An opposable thumb is a lot of damage.
So the cats, we have a 2-story house, but the second story there's a loft, so it looks out over the first floor, and the cats basically have that loft area as their domain. We do not allow the dogs up there, so the cats have their own safe space up there. So out of the 5 cats, we have a couple of elderly ladies. And one of our old lady cats has gotten to the age where she's a little bit incontinent. So we put the puppy pads down for her, you know, because sometimes she will miss the litter box. I think it's because she's arthritic.
Who was the one that you guys had to like baby real bad like about a month or 2
That was her.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
like, it looked like she was like, I thought I was going to get the phone call that,
exactly.
Hey man, we're not taping the show tonight.
Yeah. She was looking real rough there a couple of months ago.
Bouncing back pretty good, huh?
Yeah. But I mean, she's like a 20-year-old cat. Oh, so you know, she's like an old lady, and they get arthritic, and so sometimes it's hard to climb in and out of the litter box. So sometimes she doesn't make it. So we put the puppy pads down for her, right? And you must be wondering, what does this have to do with setting your house on fire? Well, last night before I headed down to the comedy club, I was putting pads down, cleaning litter boxes and stuff like that, and I took one of the pads that I was about to tape down next to the litter box, and I draped it over the railing of the loft, right? And I didn't realize it, but it blew off the side of the railing, drifted down to the first floor, and landed right on top of a candle that I had burning in our entryway. And I didn't notice it even before the smoke detector went off or anything like that. I heard a weird noise. It was like a crackling. Oh, that's weird. And I looked over the railing, and there's like one of those little tables in the foyer with the candles, where you put your keys and stuff like that. The whole thing's on fire. And I was like, I grabbed the cat's water bowl.
That's a big fire. Like, it was hot to your face probably, huh?
Yeah. I grabbed the cat's water bowl and threw it down on the thing. That extinguished a fair amount of it. And fortunately, it didn't travel much outside of that. But it was a little cat. Even though I had a fire extinguisher. No, it did.
You had a fire extinguisher.
Yeah, I do. But it was in the laundry room, which I would have had to have gone past the fire to get to.
That's okay. At least you
the
have
laundry
one.
room.
I
Yeah.
told you that's my pet peeve with people.
Oh, when they don't?
Guys that have 30 fucking guns in their house.
Oh,
and
yeah,
not
exactly,
one fire
right.
extinguisher.
Yeah.
It's for safety. I'm like,
Yeah.
Guys, you don't care about safety. You like guns, and that's
Yeah.
okay. Tell me you like guns.
What's more likely?
Yeah, your house is more likely, 10 times more likely to burn down than it is to get burglarized.
Yeah.
It's like, but so you're into safety?
Yeah. No, we have one in the, we have a fire extinguisher in the laundry room, and we have one under the sink in the kitchen, but both of them would have, obviously if it had been much worse than that, then we would have busted those out. So I get the fire,
In fact,
put out.
actually, I need to relook through mine. I think it's been about 2 years because I have 5 of them throughout the house.
Oh yeah.
But they go bad like anything else.
Yeah.
I got to check them again.
Yeah.
Now that we're having that conversation, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh shit, I'm that asshole right now.
I get the fire put out. It was making me a little late to get down to the comedy club. I went down to the comedy club, and I thought I was just going down there to watch a set. Our buddy Butch Bradley was headlining, and I walked in as the opening theme is rolling, and the guy that's hosting said, "I'm about to bring you up," and I went, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, Butch said you're doing a set." I had no idea what was going on. I was literally setting my bags down because I thought we were just going to hang out and watch the show. It was weird. I'd never had that happen to me in stand-up before, because it was like I just walked in the door, put the bags down, walked right up on stage. And crazy as it was...
That'd be kind of cool to do if I ever went to the fights and like, Amir, wrap up and go. I'm like, oh shit, really?
I thought I was just doing color.
Yeah.
No.
Because the worst thing, I mean, I don't know if you still get nervous like that the night before, but fuck, man, 2 or 3 days before a fight, I don't eat very much. You're nervous. You got the constant. You're sitting there. You don't get a good night's sleep because you're doing the if I do this and he does this and I do this. So it'd be kind of nice to skip all past that and get right to the fight, because that's the easier part mentally to deal with is once they close the cage door, like, all right, go. Now it's what you're used to. But all the other stuff beforehand, especially that 2 hours, man, I'll never need any kind of, if I'm ever feeling constipated, just schedule me a fight because everything just goes.
It's funny you say that, because while I don't ordinarily feel that when I'm doing, unless the stand-up set's going to get sprung on me like last night, I don't so much feel that before normal comedy sets. But I have been feeling it with this roast battle tournament that I'm in. That is different because you absolutely have to think
you did another one on Friday, right?
I did. I won. So I have advanced to the Final Four. It started out as a 16-man tournament. You're not the only.
So it's the Sweet 16,
the
Elite 8, the Final Four.
And then the finals. And you, I just, point of order here. Everybody may be talking about the fact that Frank Mir has gotten involved in this grueling tournament to crown a champion. You're not the only one. I, too, am in a very, it's grueling in a different way. But actually, who am I? I would prefer to be in mine than yours. But, so I got through Friday. I beat a guy, John Gilligan. I beat him, and then he was good though. He was really good. In fact,
fight?
Yeah, I'll bring some video of it on our next episode. It was pretty good. But
is he as open as our last guy to come on? Maybe.
Oh yeah, he'd probably come on. Oh yeah, would imagine he would. But here's the crazy thing. So I won that, and that I have actually been just what you described about, thinking through before a fight. If he does this, I do that, because that's what a lot of it is. You may have these sort of thought out insults and things written down, but but you also get a rebuttal to each joke.
Yeah, I saw that. And that's where you can really get a lot of laughs. You can really steal his thunder by a smart-ass rebuttal.
You can, and actually that was my high point from Friday night, and I think probably how I won that round.
I like rebuttals.
But
this really shows how quick-witted you are.
But thanks. But you have to think in terms of, okay, if he goes here, I go there. It's not just cut and dry, right?
It's like fighting.
Yeah.
You have an idea of the different things a person's capable of, but until it goes, you really don't know.
You don't.
Obviously, I know the guy's not going to do a front flip double kick. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to bring your brain there.
Yeah.
But, I understand what you're saying. Like, there's certain things like, all right, you might make fun of my appearance, my lifestyle, as far as, your veganism, I'm sure you have a few ideas where he might go.
Yeah, absolutely.
But who knows?
Well, and the other thing is too, the rebuttals themselves, the comebacks can be modified. So it's like, okay, if it's a rebuttal that references topic A, I can defend it this way, but if he goes with topic B, I just modify that rebuttal to fit the other scenario. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff that happens. So so that's been going through my head. But listen to this. So we take this week off because of Thanksgiving, but next week, a week from Friday, if anybody's...
I can go to that one now.
Okay, come on out. I need the support. If anybody's going to be in Las Vegas, what is that? What day is that? Let me look that up. The...
25th.
Not this Friday, not the day after Thanksgiving, but the.
Would it be like December 1st, maybe?
I'll tell you exactly. It would be December 1st, yes, sir. So December 1st, LA Comedy Club inside the Stratosphere Hotel and Casino on the Las Vegas Strip. Free show at midnight if you want to watch me come out and try to win it all in the roast battle. But here's.
Can I towel you down or give you water in between?
Oh, corner me. I like that idea. Yeah, that's a good idea. Well, so here's the thing. You're going to pick a good show to come out to, because what I found out was, okay, so I made it to the Final Four. Well...
Is everybody going that night?
Yeah.
That's cool.
So if I get...
We can also see, I can help you scope out your opponent.
That's right. So if I win that round, then I have to turn right back around and do the,
come on, man,
the
fight
championship.
mentality. When you win that round.
Yeah, exactly. But so essentially, I have to write for 3 people, because I have to write for the guy I know I'm going to be competing against.
Oh, night you go against the guy? Oh, shit. So we get to see the
championship.
Nice.
And it could be either guy. See, that's a crazy thing. I mean, you've got to be prepared to theoretically
old school
fight
tournament.
Yeah, 3 different opponents. Exactly.
I like it.
Yeah. So so anyway, so that's going down.
Oh man, I'm gonna make a good one then. I'm glad that it's moved to the following weekend, because I'm actually going to be next weekend, or this weekend coming up. I'm leaving. We're having Thanksgiving early, which I'm hearing now that our significant others have orchestrated.
I believe we're blending. We're merging.
Yeah. So it'll be Thursday at noon. We're having an early Thanksgiving, because I have to leave at 1 o'clock. To go to Germany.
Yeah.
That's just funny when you travel internationally. Like certain things, it's just becoming more international. I'm learning that things are just different cultures. But they were like, all right, so you're going to be in Vienna, because Carl Princey's also the matchmaker and helps out with the ACB, but he's a phenomenal striking coach and MMA guy. And I really like working out with him. So they're like, oh, Princey will be there. So why don't you just go from Vienna and you can be in Germany on Monday, and we'll have you, you just work out and, because they know that I'm back on the, training much more vigorously. And I was like, there's this thing in America where we massacred all the natives. And it started out as this really nice setting that we've just established into a Thanksgiving thing. And it's a meal that if, I can't imagine having Thanksgiving in my house, my wife and kids, and then I'm not even here. So I'm like, that's not going to work. I'm going to go ahead and jump and travel 25 hours back home to go ahead and travel only about 12 hours to get there this time.
Yeah. So we're going to do, we'll do Thanksgiving together then on Thursday.
Yeah, that way. And you living as your vegan etiquette or lifestyle. because you and Jen, but then Jen's going to prepare food because now James Horn,
That's
the guy
right.
that also, if anybody watches my fights, extremely tattooed up, big, vicious looking 6'5" guy. Him and his wife have become vegans as about 4 or 5 months in now.
That's right.
She's a nurse, and so now she's just, I guess, seeing more of the health effects, and he's sticking to it. I mean, the last time he was at my house, we were watching some of the fights about 3 weeks ago, and we went out and got Popeye's chicken, and he just had beans and rice.
Yeah.
You know? I'm just sitting there looking at him like, well, you know.
Well, now he's going to see the gourmet side of it though, because there'll be a lot of cooking going on in the Hunter kitchen.
Well, I told you that, and that's what we're doing now with Jen.
Yeah.
We probably 4 or 5 days a week live like vegetarians.
Yeah.
And, you know, 3 and the other 2 to 3, sometimes 4. We never eat meat 2 days in a row. You know what I mean? Like, because I think also too, if you think about it realistically, even if you feel that, like, you know, humans, I feel still we ate meat at a certain point. I think being your vegan choice is because of the humanitarian effects towards being humane towards animals, but still the high protein, the amino acids help boost the brains. But the best hunters in the world weren't eating meat every day. You know what I mean? Like, and you sure the fuck weren't eating it 3 or 4 times a day.
No.
So I think that's why you're seeing some of the
very long.
cardiac effects that we're having. But I still don't think that for me right now, jumping full vegan is going to be, you know, it's like, well, you know, meat still has its place, but just, I think like Mediterranean diet, you know, they eat, you know, chicken maybe once a week or a fish, and, you know, once a month have a red meat, you know.
And I had gone. Oh, by the way, did you see the conclusion? We got Fabrico Werdum and Marcin Tibera up here on the screen inside the bunker. The heavyweight contenders main event from UFC Australia this past Saturday, and Fabricio won a 5-round unanimous decision on all 3 judges' scorecards. I think there was even a 10-8 round in there somewhere on one of the judges' cards, although I didn't
Well, he
see
had him
that.
mounted and beating him up in that one thing, but I told you, I think I actually got this from Brian Lacey because we were one time having a discussion on air about what it means to have a 10-8 round.
Yeah.
I think a 10-8 round means you're winning the round, and at one point we thought maybe the fight could have been stopped.
Yeah, I agree.
Or it was close to being
Close
stopped.
enough, yeah.
Where, you know, you got the judge or the referee sitting over the top, and you're like, oh, and the guy barely gets away.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he survived it. It's like, all right, that's 10-8. When you're on the verge of getting the guy stopped, that's a 10-8 round.
Did you? Fabricio comes in as a number 2. Tibera came in as an 8. Werdum obviously, further solidifies his spot up there atop the heavyweight rankings. Maybe did you see the other news that Fabricio made this week? He got in the presence of Colby Covington, this guy that just beat Damian Maia.
Yeah.
And it's kind of young upstart. And Covington is definitely taking a chapter from the Conor McGregor book, and he's trying to be brash and
But he's a welterweight.
Yep. He's number 3 ranked welterweight. And he called the Brazilians filthy animals when he was down there for the Maia fight. They didn't like that. Fabricio's Brazilian, of course, and I guess that stuck in his mind. So these two get around each other, and they're, of course, down there in Australia. Fabricio, at the press conference setting that they're in, picks up a boomerang that just happens to be sitting on the table, I guess because they're in Australia, and throws it at Colby Covington. Covington has now pressed charges against Fabrico Werdum.
Well, is a boomerang could be considered a projectile weapon. So it's an assault and battery with a deadly weapon.
Yeah, sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
I should have been a lawyer, man. I love that shit.
Yeah. You could be traveling to Australia right now to represent Fabrico Werdum.
And now he has to fucking pay his ticket to go back and defend himself.
I know. I don't, the thought I had was
Fabricio's a nice, intelligent guy.
Yeah.
Great martial artist. I've hung out with him. I don't think I could think of anything bad to say about the guy. Like, he's good energy. He's fun. Like I said, he's a smart individual. He's respectful. Like, I don't know. That's weird to me, man. Like, if you told me, gave me a list of 10 guys that would pull let me try to, be outlandish and get attention, go the Conor McGregor or, type of stick.
Mm-hmm.
He's nowhere even near it, man. He might be in my top 10 of guys that would never go that route. So like him, and then before that, was it Holloway that he had the argument with?
No. It was it Masvidal? It wasn't Holloway. It was,
was like a 45-pounder, a 55-pounder, right?
Yes. Who did he? Ferguson. Tony Ferguson. That's what it was. Right? Yeah, Tony Ferguson. That's right. Yeah,
I'm like, so for him, I don't know. Like, I mean, obviously, even as a heavyweight, I'm not going to take shit from a lighter guy. If he goes out of his way, I'd be like, hey, buddy, you remember here. I mean, there's a reason why there's weight classes.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, you're not really in a winning situation. I mean, that's why sometimes little guys will pick on a big guy in a bar. It's like, if I cream you, you're still going to kind of get some points because you faced me, but. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to get points for whooping your ass.
No-win situation.
Yeah, it's really a no-win situation. And so to go after for him so aggressively, I don't get it, man. Yeah. Like, that's just not Fabricio's style. I don't know. Maybe he's getting later in his career and he's trying to different marketing stuff. I don't know. He's not that guy, man. He's just not. He's a nice guy.
It gave me an idea for a novelty fight. One night only, inside the octagon, it's Fabrico Werdum and his boomerang facing off against Daniel Cormier, who moves back up to heavyweight with his brown shoe.
They should do a stick together. Just sit there and like, all right, you get your boomerang, get my shoe, and start going. You know what I mean? Like, you could have like 6 pairs of brown shoe, all lefts. You know what
I mean? Did you hear Charles Manson died?
I'm aware of that. Now, real quickly, I was like, hey, wait a minute. It's funny. My wife, she's like, you are so morbid. I'm like, he died. I was like, oh, shit, he died. I think I have him on my list.
You sure do. You had Charles Manson on your roster in Doug Stanhope's celebrity death pool. So let's check the rankings. Charles Manson passed away last night at the ripe old age of 83 of unspecified natural causes. He had been in poor health for a number of months. And,
he had that intestinal bleed back, I think, in February, January, something. And I know they didn't disclose how they fixed it, but they must have done something.
I think what happened back then was that he was too weak for the surgery. There was something like that going on. So, and I doubt there's just a whole lot of funding being put behind keeping him alive at this point. So, yes, you did have Charles Manson on your death pool. You and me, Frank, play in Doug Stanhope's Celebrity Death Pool, along with a number of our listeners. Now, we're going to look at 2 different leagues here. We have a listeners league. A lot of our Phone Booth Fighting listeners play in. And then you and I play in Doug Stanhope's invitation-only league. I think there's only like 12 of us in that league. Comedian Doug Stanhope, if you're not familiar with him, but I know as dark and twisted as a lot of our listeners are, they know his name. All right, so Frank, let's look at the Phone Booth Fighting League first. You, in that league for the year, have had 3 kills. Hugh Hefner, who was worth 9 points. Reminder that the scoring system is your age, is 100 minus your age. So Hugh Hefner lives to be, what was he, 91? So you get 9 points for him. He's not a big payoff. The older these guys are, typically...
And there was no bonuses on him?
No, he wasn't a solo pick. Most of the bonuses will come from unnatural causes, drug overdoses, murders, things like that. You had George the Animal Steele, and you got a solo pick bonus off of him. You think you were the only person who picked him. So he scored you 46 points, the old classic pro wrestler. And then Manson got you 17 points because he's 83 years of age. As you can imagine, a number of people had Charles Manson.
Only would have fucking died a week earlier, I could have gotten, because, he just turned.
That's right. Would have gotten you 1 more point. Yeah. That's true. Boy, he sure did. His birthday was November 12th.
Asshole. Even to death. No.
Yeah. So for our listeners league, that will only get you as high as number 41 in the rankings. We have a total of well, actually, I don't even know the number, but I think we got like 100 people playing in this league.
I know we're over 100.
Yeah, so you're at least you're above the
because we started our thing about 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
So a couple of my kills I had on my original thing.
That's what it was. Yeah. You couldn't count them. That's why your rosters are a little off. So you so at least you're above the fold. You're above the Mason-Dixon.
Because I think I had 130 points when we started off in the other one.
Mm-hmm. We're going to get to that one in a second because you're doing better over there. So you're at number 41. I am at number 16 in our phone booth fighting league. We both have 3 kills over there, but I have a higher score total, 123 points. I've had
kicking my ass on that side.
Errol Christie, former pro boxer, Gordon Downey, who was the front man from the Canadian rock band Tragically Hip, and Peter Salas, who is an old British actor. Those are my 3 over there. Now, we need to give a shout-out to a couple of our phone booth fighting listeners, though. Let's look at who is in the top 5. Reem Bob is sitting at number 5 in our listeners' league with 183 points and 4 kills. Alptich is at number 4 with 6 kills and 186 points. Check this out. Joey Russ, even though he's at number 3, has 192 points and 7 kills, as does Washed Up Willie, who is in first place. That's pretty crazy, 7 kills. I mean, you got this thing down to a science. And then Leonitha is in second place with 4.
I might start calling them and conversing with them on the 15th. Mm-hmm. Okay, so for my Stanhope, which I'm better chance of catching up on everybody.
Yeah, that's right, because you're going to have...
Hey, who are you going to trade? I'll trade.
See, you're going to be able to make one more trade. We get a 24-hour trade window that opens on the 15th of each month, and the season runs the entire calendar year. So there'll be one more trade deadline on December 15th. See, it's just like fantasy football, but different.
Cool.
Okay, so let's look at our Stanhope League, because that's where you're doing that. Now, you came out... You are... according to the commissioner of the Death Pool League,
I got the fastest kill now, right?
You did. It was fastest kill in Death Pool history.
I got the fastest heavyweight title submission in the UFC, and now I can put up there the fastest kill in Doug Stanhope's Celebrity Death Pool.
It's right up there. When they induct you into the Hall of Fame, I'm going to make sure that is not overlooked. Man. Yeah, absolutely. So right now, you are in 6th place in the Death Pool League. That's out of, I think there's 14 of us playing. You are in 6th place with 5 kills. That's pretty impressive. I mean, you can only get 20 picks. That means 1 in 4 people have died.
If I pick you, the 25% chance your ass is going to die.
That's right. So you had, let me look at who you had. So you had Manson, 17 points, George the Animal Steel, Hugh Hefner, and then John Hurt, the actor. That's the one that you killed right out of the gate when the season started.
A couple hours into it,
right? Yeah, you sure did. And then you also had Juiced Vander Westhuizen, who was an old rugby player. That he's been in bad health for a number of years now.
I researched on him to find him.
Yeah, exactly. So that's who you had. So you're there at 6th. I'm at 9th so we kind of flip flop there. I'm at 9th in the in Doug's league.
So how many points do I have in Doug's league?
Okay, you have 175. See
what's first place?
Well, first place is 288.
No. I mean, there's no way I'm catching him now.
It's going to be tough. But the thing is that you have 5 kills. The 2 places above you only have 4 kills. It's just that they paid off better. But see, those are reachable. I mean, you're at 175. The person above you is 191. Person above you is 195.
206.
Yeah.
So I could slide into 4th.
You could do it. I'll tell you what did it for Doug. Now, Doug himself is all the way up there at number 2, which I think this is the highest he has ever been at this point in the season. He this is going to sound terrible, but he knew he was on Doug's list year in and year out. My old friend Ralphie May. Doug and Ralphie were friends.
That's right.
And Doug always told Ralphie, I'm putting you on my death pool list. He had him every single season.
Man, I should have put him on mine just after we went to that thing. I told you when we sat and met him and hung out, he just had that real grayish tint to him. I'm like, man, he doesn't look like he's getting enough oxygen.
Well, you wouldn't have been able to pick him because Doug would already had him. See, Doug puts him on at the beginning of every year.
Oh, so even on the trade, I can't take. Oh, that's
not
right,
if he's already taken.
That's right.
Doug had him as a solo pick, and plus the fact that he was 45. He was an 80-point payoff.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. So so that did it for him. So, but the thing is, you got a couple of long shots here because whoever created the rules of the league was very smart in doing this. The biggest payoff, if you look at the scoring, the biggest bonus you could possibly get is if one of your celebrities dies on New Year's Eve.
Yep.
It's called the last call.
That's 50 points, right?
100.
What's 100 points?
See, it's a game changer.
So 100 points plus, like, if they died, like, of the drug overdose, it's like a 25 point.
Yep.
That's why, like,
25.
Lindsay Lohan would be like a 200-point win, right?
Yeah. If whatever she overdoes on New Year's Eve, she could do before the stroke of midnight.
Okay, so if I hung out with her and helped motivate her to do more drugs than usual,
there would be a review because.
But I didn't directly kill her. I just partied with her.
Well, let me just say, as somebody who competes against you in this league, I would call for at least an inquiry because the first rule of Celebrity Death Pool, and I'm reading it verbatim from the website right now, thou shalt not murder thy picks.
Right. But then would we have to fall on a judicial court to decide whether I killed her or not?
Well,
it'd be kind of like, wasn't it one of the twins?
Olsen twins?
Didn't they party with, or gave him the pills? The Joker. Heath Ledger. They were involved in somehow that.
Yeah, okay. I heard. I don't know if that was substantiated, but I did hear something
as
like
a drug dealer, if you give someone heroin and they OD, have we ever arrested a drug dealer for manslaughter?
I think so. Yeah, I think they can be held accountable.
Okay, so if I don't actually sell you the drugs, but I'm like, hey, I'm doing drugs. Would you like to do drugs too? And just fake it, kind of like one of those over-the-shoulder things, you know, like, oh, I did a shot, and you party. That's not killing you. Let me
further review the rule.
I mean, we're born on the fact that A, that I can be allowed to, by the wife, party with Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah.
B, Lindsay Lohan wants to party with me. And C, if I can convince her to do, she'd probably kill me if I tried to keep up with her in drugs.
Yeah. Do you think you could make the case to Mrs. Muir that a celebrity death pool victory could be on the line and that there is money involved?
Yeah, I'll just bring like whatever they do in the movies.
Yeah.
The fake cocaine, you know, so do like a Tony Montana thing.
Yeah.
Just make sure hers is not fake. No.
Yeah.
Pretty sure she wouldn't be.
Yeah. Well, the rule says.
I'm pretty sure she's not opposed to doing drugs, right?
Certainly not in her past. I don't know where she's at these days, but the rule clearly states after thou shalt not murder thy picks, league members are hereby forbidden from harming, murdering, or in any manner affecting the general health or well-being of any celebrity. League members that do not adhere to this rule will be expelled from Doug Help's Celebrity Death Pool and permanently and shall be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. All right. Gets competitive. Gets competitive, folks.
Is Lindsay still on my list, right, for Doug Stanhope's?
I don't think so. I'll tell you.
Who's the youngest person I can influence?
Okay. No, you know what? That's interesting because as it gets later in the year, you start looking for people like that because they're bigger. They're more. They're bigger long shots. Yeah, they're Hail Marys. And I'll tell you the one that I did that with is Aaron Carter. You know that guy?
Oh,
yeah. I picked him up, and he would be a huge payoff for me because I think I got him. I got him as a solo pick, and he was born in '87. I mean that would be a game changer right there. All right, your youngest person that you still have on the roster is probably going to be let's see, well, it's certainly not Bill Cosby, Clint Eastwood, Dick Cheney, Hulk Hogan, probably Jamie Lynn Sigler. You got her; she was born in '81, so that would be it probably. Other than that, you got a bunch of old geezers on there. All right.
Should be, if I get her to dialysis, so it'll be like 70 points, let's say.
Yeah.
Because what is she? Well, I guess a little bit less than 70. What, 63 points? 64 points. Is she, what, 36? 81. Yeah, she's 36. So I get 74 points there, 100 points. If I can get her to do drugs, 25. Yeah, that's almost 200 points, man.
But I'm telling you got to be careful about putting this stuff on tape because this episode will be subpoenaed.
Right? No.
Yeah.
Watch, he dies of a drug overdose.
Uh-huh.
Like, where were you? I'm like, I swear to God, it was a joke.
I was taping a podcast. Speaking of subpoenaed, I got subpoenaed last week.
That's right.
I had to go to Reno to testify in Scott Thorson's early release hearing. Scott Thorson is the former boyfriend of Liberace, the guy who was played by Matt Damon in the movie Behind the Candelabra with Mike Douglas as Liberace. If you saw that, the HBO movie from a few years ago, it won all the awards. Scott Thorson was Liberace's ex-boyfriend. Scott and I are friends. That's a whole long story as to how we know each other. It's not what you think, but it's maybe even weirder than what you might assume. So that's a story for, I think I've told it on the podcast before, but we'll have to review that another time. But Scott is in prison up in northern Nevada because Scott has had drug problems in his life, and he had tested positive for some drugs, and his parole or probation, I guess at that point, got revoked, and he got sent to prison. He's been in there for like 4 years now.
If he gets out, I'm going to put him on my list next year. Drug addicts are great picks.
Yep. Well, I tell you what, I would get him on the podcast, and you can interview him in person and see what tells you can pick up on. Yeah. So I went up to Reno, and you've heard my monologue about how it galls me that I can't get selected for jury duty. Well, this short of that, I mean, this fulfilled a fantasy because I was brought into the courtroom as a star witness, got to raise my right hand, take the witness stand, the whole bit. I got cross-examined by the DA, who was aggressive, thought she was gonna get
Rattle
me.
you?
Yeah. And what I was there to do was to testify that while Scott was in my presence, that he was able to abstain from drugs because, as you know, I'm a teetotaler. So what happened, though, was, and this was when I was living up in Reno by the Bunny Ranch, we actually moved him into the Bunny Ranch for a while. And you would think, oh, that's a terrible, tempting place, but it's actually not, because there's a security gate around the whole thing. You have to be buzzed in and out of there. You can't just get onto the property. And because everybody on site has to be licensed and no criminal records and things like that, then you actually end up not having a lot of the problem that you have in the outside world. So, and especially as long as I was able to keep an eye on him, he was able to stay straight. Well, the issue was this. The offenses that he was on probation for were in Washoe County, which is where Reno is. And the neighboring county, which is Lyon County, that's where the Bunny Ranch is. So the county that had jurisdiction over him, meaning Washoe, they wanted him in Washoe County. Well, I lived just over the county line. Carson City, where the Bunny Ranch is, and Reno are only about 30 minutes from each other. And I lived on a ranch that was just about halfway in between, just over the county line in Washoe. So we said to the judge, all right, well, I'll move him out to my ranch, and he can live in the guest house there, and he will technically be in Washoe. And we did that for a little bit. That was an even safer place for him because it was just me and Jennifer out there. So, he there wasn't even a store he could walk to try to score. Well, the judge wasn't having that, so the judge picked him up and moved him into downtown Reno in a hotel. I don't know if you ever spent much time in Reno.
No, I've been there. I've not spent a lot of time there.
Gets a little gritty.
Just
downtown.
Tournaments and stuff. I've wrestled up in there.
Gets a little gritty in the downtown area. And they insisted that he move into basically a drug hotel. I had to help move him into the hotel, and I was shooing drug dealers off the elevator as we were moving him in that had already identified him as a target. So the assistant district attorney apparently had said to his probation officer that, okay, now that we've got him downtown, it won't be long and he'll screw up and we'll bust him. So the assistant DA kind of had it in for him, right? And so a lot of the testimony was based on this kind of stuff. They're calling in the probation officer to testify against the assistant DA who had since retired, things like that. So I'm in there to testify to the part that I know.
Why did they have something against him?
Because...
Or why did that AD have it?
Yeah, so here's what happened. Not that Scott Thorson is an A-list celebrity, but certainly at the time, especially because of the notoriety around the movie and that Matt Damon's playing him in a movie and the movie was a big hit, he was a celebrity and people knew the name. Well, the fact that Dennis Hoff from the Bunny Ranch got involved with him, I mean, that helped get him out of jail to begin with, but then once he's out of jail, that also, you've got an illuminated pimp standing next to you. That's calling even more attention, especially up there where that's Dennis's backyard, so it's a spectacle. And as you know, Dennis courts the limelight, so it's all over the news. So I think it was that. I think it was like Reno is, I think, advertises themselves as like the world's biggest little city or something like that. So there is kind of even though I think there's 500,000 people there at least that live there, it is kind of a small town feel. So it's like, they're looking at it like, oh, this is going to be embarrassing to us if this sideshow comes through our courtroom. And we had gotten him this high-powered defense attorney, this guy David Houston that practices there. He was actually, speaking of Hulk Hogan in your death pool, he was Hulk Hogan's attorney during his sex tape thing that Hulk Hogan had going on. So David went into court and got him this probation deal, and the DA was mad about it, and the DA kind of had it out for him to get him to screw up so that they could invoke the full sentence. That's what happened. He's been in prison for the last 4 years, which is actually the only reason I've ever been in a prison. I've been to visit him. You've ever been in a prison? Mm-hmm. It's scary. Were you freaked out? Like with all the... It freaked me out, like actually going in and all those gates are slammed behind you, and you're walking through the razor wire and all that kind of stuff.
I just remember my thing is when people sit there like to be a criminal or not. I'm like, I'll be honest with you. The idea of being imprisoned scares the shit out of me. I don't like that. I mean, the idea that like, all right, everybody go into your room, shut the door, you can't get out. I'm like, that would drive me nuts.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, I'm too much of a,
Yeah.
I mean, I like laying in my bed and hanging out, but like when it's time for me to get up, I want to be, if I want to go down the street, I want to go down the street.
Yeah.
Being told what to do and being that confined, it would it'd take the life out of me.
Yeah, it would me too. So I went up there and testified to what I knew and what I had overheard, because I had overheard a conversation between the probation officer and the assistant DA and all this. And it was very exciting. It was exactly...
So you heard the DA?
I did. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's part of why I was being called. Yeah, I heard him.
Man, that's kind of... for somebody to be, in the Justice Department... to be trying to set someone up, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a cop can't, if
conflict of interest,
coercion. No, what's the word I'm looking for? Like
collusion.
Collusion. No, what is it? If a police officer, goes as an undercover, drug dealer, they can sit there. And like, if you come up to them, there's like, okay, well, that's you're screwed. But like, he can't come knock on my door.
Oh, entrapment.
Entrapment,
yep.
Yes.
Yep.
You can't come and be like, hey, would you like to buy drugs? You can't go first.
Exactly.
Because it's like, it'll be like, sending a prostitute to my room. It'll be like, well, that's entrapment. You know what I mean? You can't corner me and try to like put me in a situation to break the law. You can sit there like a mousetrap and be like, all right, there it is, man. If you go for it, you're screwed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you can't sit there and throw the mousetrap at me.
Right. And it goes against...
That's entrapment, right?
Yes. And it also goes against the general principle of rehabilitation, which is what the justice system's supposed to be there for to begin with.
Yeah.
You're supposed to, no matter, both sides should theoretically be rooting for the criminal to rehabilitate as
Correct.
Opposed to reoffend. So yeah, absolutely, it's counterintuitive to his job, and so I had overheard it, and it was interesting because it was.
Did that blow your mind to hear a district attorney? I mean, the assistant to sit there and go, okay, well, we're going to put him here, and we know he's going to fuck up if we get him over there. It's like, well, if you know that's going to make him fuck up, why don't we stick him over here where he might not fuck up?
Yeah, it absolutely. And
don't we want to help this guy with the tools to become part of society again? Like, if not, then just fuck it, throwing him in jail. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't think this guy has a chance, then why are we letting him loose so then he gets drugged up, drives a car, and smashes into some family?
It was weird to me. And
because could you imagine if he did? Like, then think about the lawsuit there. Like, if I knew that, And I found out that as the district attorney, you put the guy in a situation where you were hoping he was going to fail. If he did fail, let's say he gets loaded, gets behind the wheel of a car, and he runs a family over.
Yeah.
You're fucking responsible too now, man, because you put him in a situation to fail, hoping he would fail. And now he killed somebody because he was fucking lit and behind the wheel of a car. If that was my family, I'm going to be like, so why was this guy out?
I know. I would hold that person partially responsible for it, for creating that.
Definitely a negligence, civil lawsuit.
And especially if you know Scott, because if we can get him out of prison, we will get him on the podcast. You can hear all the stories yourself. But he's a nice guy. He's not a violent criminal. He's one of these people who he would never do anything to hurt you.
He's just an addict.
He's an addict. That's it. And he will
self-destructive.
And he will get himself in situations where he'll be wrong place, wrong time a lot of the time. I don't think I've told the story on the podcast, but one of my first experiences with him, just to sort of put this picture in the frame, and Scott's in his late 50s at this point, right? At least, gosh, he might have passed 60 at this point, but he's definitely in his late 50s. We had bailed him out of jail. Dennis Hoff, the guy that owns the Bunny Ranch, and I'd gone to Dennis when the movie came out because I found out Scott was in the Reno jail, and I said, hey, I don't know what we're going to do with him once we get him out, but let's bail this guy out of jail. Let's move him into the Bunny Ranch, see what happens. So Dennis went for it. Dennis paid out all the cash. We moved him in as a greeter, as an ambassador, and Dennis ended up doing a whole bunch of press with him that you probably
don't
still
have to worry
find
about him
online.
trying to go after any of the girls.
You did not. No, you definitely did not have to worry about that. But
is he gay? Like, ew, women gay? Like, what I mean? Like, oh God, no.
He's real gay. I mean, he is a classic gay.
Yeah.
But I believe he has had maybe one or two heterosexual relationships when he was sort of finding himself.
Oh, okay.
But the thing is, he's got a real childlike quality to him. I mean, in a good way, right? Like an innocent way, kind of. I mean, he's not innocent in a whole lot of other ways, but there's something about him that, just to give you an example. So one of the first days that I had him, because I basically became like his minder. I mean, I'm his sober companion at this point, and I'm having to keep an eye on him. And so he's getting money from tabloids like the National Enquirer. They will, they pay you for stories, and he's got 1 million of them. I mean, he didn't just date Liberace. He was in a relationship with Michael Jackson.
What?
Yeah, in the Michael Jackson heyday too, like when Thriller was out and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, little kid diddling stuff. I thought Michael Jackson swung that direction, but I thought that publicly, like, wait a minute, like other people know this?
Well, no. I mean, it's been in the tabloids,
right.
But no, it was nothing that Michael Jackson.
Also, Michael
was out
Jackson
about.
was homosexual.
Well, according to Scott, at least for their relationship,
or bisexual, I guess.
And he took lie detector tests, like with the tabloids, to prove a lot of what he was saying. But yeah, according to him. I mean, I'll add that caveat, but that there was a relationship between the two. So he had that story.
Well, he seems a little old for Michael.
True. Yeah, that's true.
Michael liked him.
He's a handsome guy, though, back in the day.
He's like, it made me dress up like a little boy.
Yeah. But he was also the key witness in the Wonderland murders. So if you've ever seen the movie Wonderland with Val Kilmer, Scott had to go in the witness protection program because he was the witness in that trial that sent Eddie Nash, the drug dealer, would have sent him to prison had the jury not resulted in a mistrial.
I didn't know it went in mistrial.
Yeah, because Eddie Nash paid off one of the jurors, and that's since been substantiated that he actually got to one of the jurors and paid him off. There's so much to tell with Scott. Now we'd be here all night.
That was when John Holmes was involved.
That
in
one,
yeah.
Yes, that one. And Scott saw John Holmes. He was at Eddie Nash's house when the bodyguard Greg Dials brought John Holmes, all covered in blood, back into the house to prove that he had killed all 4 of those people. It happened right in front of Scott.
To pay off his drug debts, right?
And that's how he knew the information and why he testified. I mean, it sounds like I'm going off in a million different tangents, but this is Scott's life. This is how many different things he's like the Forrest Gump of sleaze. Like he just keeps popping up in history for all these horrible
That's a good
reasons,
one. I like that,
right?
man. That's good.
But anyway, these tabloids. He did not have a. When I picked him up, one of the first days I was with him, he was getting these little, couple of grand here, a couple of grand there checks from the National Enquirer and these other tabloids, but he didn't have a bank account, as most destitutes don't. Right. So they were wiring him money to these like little check cashing places, right? Payday loan type things. So I took him to one of them to pick up the money that he had coming. He had a grand or two coming from National Enquirer. He goes in, comes back out to the car. He's all upset. Scott, what's wrong? He goes, well, they won't give me the money because I don't have any ID. His ID was still locked up in the Reno jail because of the credit card that he'd stolen. That was still evidence for his trial that hadn't played itself out yet, right? So he goes, I know what I'll do. He picks up a copy of the National Enquirer he left on the floorboard because there was an article about him in it, right? He goes, I'll take this National Enquirer in there. I'll show them the story about me. They'll see that it's me, and then they'll give me the money. And I said, Scott, it sounded real proud of himself, And I was thinking of that. And I said, well, Scott, let me just raise a couple of issues here. One, the picture of you in the story is a mugshot that you're going to use for photo ID. And two, the headline of the story says that you've been arrested for identity theft.
Yeah.
But he just never thought of it. He's like, oh, yeah, guess that won't work.
Well, and you probably find that true with most people that are addicts or do
yes.
things like that. They don't ever think, like, if they were a fighter, they would think one move at a time. All right, I'm going to punch you. It's like, okay, but hey, what's going to happen after that? Like, fuck, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, you don't think, like, okay, he might punch you back. Oh, huh. Are you going to move afterwards, off angle, set him up? Change levels, like what is our second move, and then third, fourth, fifth, sixth, like how are we going to go through this? Just like most people are like, okay, I'm not going to pay the bills, I'm going to use it for that. I'm like, all right, so when they turn the power off, what are you going to do? Well, fuck, I don't know, but I need the money for this. I'm like, whoa. But I mean, I think that's what enables them to be, that's why, look, Matsu Musashi said that, part of being a great samurai, a leader, is that you don't really have a bad, like if you're a head carpenter, right? You don't have bad carpenters. You just have carpenters you have to put in the right position. So if you have a guy, let's say like I had you, right? And you're a master carpenter. Okay, well, I'm going to put you at the front. So you're going to do the main archways and the foundation of the house, and things are going to be seen that are, most valuable pieces of wood that we're putting up, because I can't have people making a mistake. Then let's say I have some douchebag retard that's just a complete fuck up. All right, well, he can cut wedges. It's still important, or picking up things and moving around, like putting guys in the right position. So the mentality that Scott has, I think, has a place in society, and it sucks that we can't always figure it out, because it can be a benefit that you can not think ahead and just, okay, I'm just going to concentrate the task at hand. I just single-mindedly, I want to drink a water. Okay, I'm going to get a drink of water. It's like, okay, so putting them in the right position, but it just seems like so much in our society, those guys don't have the proper placement, and then it just becomes self-destructive because they don't have the ability to regulate, consequences.
I hit on something earlier, just where I was telling the story that maybe some people picked up on when I said that he had to go in the witness protection program. Well, a lot of people want to know why he's not still in the witness protection program.
Because I think it's only for a limited time.
It's not typically something you come out of.
Oh, I never knew that. Yeah. I figured it's just why the heat's on you for 2 or 3 years. But I mean, like in this situation where, like, the guy Nash is dead.
Still alive.
Oh, I thought he was dead.
Still alive.
Oh.
And the thing is that
it's a hung jury.
Though this is an amazing story, though. So I'm going to lay it out.
I guess you're right.
No,
fuck, man, you could be in the witness protection for the rest of your life.
Sure.
And talk about, like, what if you had, man, that's a big step to go ahead and go.
This is going to blow your mind.
So why isn't he?
Okay. So what happens is he goes from dating Liberace in the late 70s, early 80s. Liberace dies. Now he's hanging out with Michael Jackson. He's got whatever involvement with him. He met Michael Jackson through Liberace.
So is Scott like a bottom or a top?
With Liberace, he was a top.
Well,
I mean, he's very effeminate, but
and then I would think,
I guess top probably.
I'm trying to place it because I mean, like both of them seem very soft. Like,
Yeah.
So I can't figure out who the girl is. And then with Michael Jackson, I'm like, well, who's the girl?
Well, Scott's kind of Scott had, especially back then, he had a real sort of golden boy look to him.
But
you know?
within that lifestyle, he would be the girl in most relationships.
No, I would think he'd be the guy.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, then that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's effeminate, but especially back then, too, he was muscular, cut, kind of,
Okay.
like how Matt Damon looks in the movie, basically.
Right. Okay.
So he went from Liberace and then Michael Jackson, but by the late 80s, he's deeply involved in drugs. He's blown through all the money that he had gotten from Liberace and all that kind of stuff, and he's definitely with a bad scene. So again, if you've seen in fact, here's a little homework. If you want to look up the Val Kilmer movie Wonderland, in which Val Kilmer plays the legendary porn star John Holmes, you'll see the backstory to what we're talking about here. So Scott is getting his drugs from this guy in L.A., Eddie Nash. He's a drug kingpin. He owns a bunch of clubs in L.A. He's also the guy, if you remember the scene in Boogie Nights, the guy with the bathrobe, the drug dealer, and Mark Wahlberg and the guys go in, they're going to rob him, but they can't get up the nerve to rob him, and there's that little Asian guy throwing the snap pops while Sister Christian's Night Ranger plays in the background. That's who that character is based on, is Eddie Nash.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of a similar, they're basically having Dirk Diggler as John Holmes in that scenario.
That's kind of
like a fictionalized version of it. So Scott is getting his drugs from Eddie Nash. There are 4 small-time criminals who live up on a road called Wonderland in L.A. And these guys are hanging around John Holmes. John Holmes is deep into drugs and AIDS and all that kind of stuff at that point. And Holmes also knows Eddie Nash. So Holmes basically helps orchestrate a robbery of Eddie Nash on the part of those 4 small-time criminals. He leaves a door at Eddie Nash's house unlocked, and then the foursome come in, rob Eddie Nash, take all the money and drugs out of his safe and all this kind of stuff. So that had just happened, and here comes Scott, again, the Forrest Gump of unfortunate circumstance, comes up to Eddie Nash's door because he's going to get his drugs. He says Eddie Nash opens the door wearing a robe with a gun in his hand. And he says, come on in, I've been robbed. Just come in, I got to deal with this. I just got robbed. So Scott sits down. Of course, he'll wait forever because he's a drug addict and is just waiting to get his hookup. So he's sitting there. Eddie Nash has a bodyguard named Greg Dials. Greg Dials comes through the door, and he's got John Holmes with him. Eddie Nash had ordered the bodyguard to go out and get John Holmes and bring him into the house because he knew John Holmes knew who had robbed him and all that kind of stuff. And so Nash tells Dials to go up to Wonderland, kill all the people in that house, and make John Holmes help with the killing so he could be involved in the killing. And off they go, and Scott's still sitting there, and all this played out right in front of Scott. Then he sees him come back in, all covered in blood. Greg Dials has a lead pipe in his hand and shows Eddie Nash that he'd bludgeoned these people with a lead pipe, and that the threads on the lead pipe had actually been indented on one of the guy's heads. He'd whacked him so hard with it. And he's saying all this right in front of Scott. And I said to Scott, when I got to know him, I said, he just said all this right in front of you? And Scott goes, well, he wasn't real smart. He just said all that in front of him. So now Scott is the witness to this. So what happens is Tom Lang, who was one of the O.J. Simpson detectives, Phil Van Adder and Tom Lang were the detectives on that case. Lang is the lead detective on this case. They find Scott, and they know that he was around that scene. They also know that he's got some unrelated small-time charges, and they use those. They say, look, we can put you away on these charges, or you can testify against Eddie Nash, and we'll give you witness protection. He testifies against Eddie Nash, but because Nash had paid off one of those jurors, the jury hangs, and Eddie Nash walks. So at this point, Scott goes off into witness protection. Eddie Nash wants to kill Scott. Got it? Okay. So Scott becomes Jess Marlowe. That's his new name in the witness protection program. So they ask him where he wants to move. He tells them Florida, goes down to Florida. And one of the programs that they had to assist people in Scott's or Jess's position it was sort of like a little kind of a halfway house type thing, but it was faith-based. There was some guy running a ministry down there in Florida, and they take Scott, now Jess Marlowe, in and kind of, help provide for him. Well, this evangelist, you'll like this part, who's running this church down in Florida, finds out, well, probably, but he finds out who Jess really is, that he's Scott Thorson, ex-boyfriend of Liberace. He sees dollar signs. He convinces Scott that what he should do is start touring the country, appearing at churches as the ex-boyfriend of Liberace, talking about how he's no longer gay. They've, prayed the gay away, essentially, and they'll make a lot of money doing this. One thing you got to know about Scott is he loves the spotlight.
Right.
And at this point, it's the only spotlight he could get. But he loved the attention because he's going around to churches.
And no bells went off going that this guy, Nass, is probably going to figure out who I am if I'm touring the country as the ex-boyfriend of Liberace?
Not until it was too late.
He really didn't think that would happen.
I just don't think he thought about it at all.
See what I mean? You can't think ahead.
So he's going around. He's to hear him tell the story, they're selling out everywhere. Every church you advertise, you got this is the 80s,
Cure for homosexuality.
Yes, Liberace's former boyfriend talks about how he was cured of gay, right? So he was enjoying getting up and putting on a show. I said, Scott, why did you stop? And this is how Scott, the genuine side of him. He said, I'll tell you what happened was one night after I got up and I did my whole speech or whatever, this young teenager male came up to me after the show because he's, signs books or whatever. And this kid said, thank you for that. I was scared. I thought something was wrong with me. Now I know, I'm okay. I'm straight. And he's like, he was gay. He's like, I could tell I'm talking to him and he's gay. And he's like, I realized, what am I doing? That's a horrible. I think up to that point, he was just thinking, it was like a medicine show. I'm just putting on a show. But then I think he saw the real effects of it.
And so because he's not a malicious human being, he realized that. That's why I hate when people tell me about gay or whatever it is, but it's mental. Yeah, you're wired that way.
Right.
I don't know if you were born that way or at a young age it became converted. I have no idea. I don't think science fully understands it either. But their brains, once you're gay, you're not going to be ungay.
Yeah, you are what you are. And he realized that he was playing he was doing a very bad thing in terms of further confusing
that
this
poor kid. Because you can fix it. There is something wrong with you, and it's fixable. And then the poor kid thinks, well, if I can't fix it, I keep praying, and I still like what I like. Then obviously I'm not praying hard enough. Or it's a fucking nightmare.
So Scott says, okay, no more of this. So he is going to head back to Hollywood from Florida to reclaim his stardom, to get involved in whatever acting roles again. Only one problem. Yeah. The drug kingpin of L.A. now wants you dead. So,
and never once he feared for his life enough to, okay, I'm in witness protection program. He obviously went into it realizing there was a purpose for it. He didn't just tell him nah, man, I'm going to be fine. And then he's still going to try to pursue his fame. Did he think he was going to show up and they didn't realize that he was the same guy?
I'll tell you I'll tell you.
I mean, how did he think that was going to work? I mean, again, did you ask him?
Yes, I did. And I just don't think he was thinking about that at that point. He's so intoxicated with the fame that I think that's all he was thinking about, was returning to that life. Now, who he was hearing it from were the people at the witness protection program, like at the FBI and all that kind of stuff. They're like, what the hell are you doing? Because they have agents assigned to him. So it's like, not only was he putting himself in danger, he was putting their agents in danger, because those people have to periodically check in on him. So he, against their better judgment, of course, said that he was going to voluntarily remove himself from the program and head to L.A. Now, he lasted outside the program for just a matter of days. And here's what happened. He's going to travel from Florida back to L.A.
Where the guy that wants to kill him is.
Right. That's right. Wow. He's in, I believe it was Tampa, and he's staying in a motel, okay? Howard Johnson's. There is a knock at the hotel room door. This is just days after he's left the witness protection program. There's a knock at the hotel room door at the Howard Johnson's motel, and he opens the door, and there stands Gregory Dials, the big bodyguard with the lead pipe. You remember him from a minute ago? He has a gun, and he shoots Scott 5 times and leaves him for dead in the motel room. Scott's laying on the floor, bleeding out, getting cold. He reaches for the phone, gets the front desk, says, I've been shot, I need help. They think it's a prank and hang up on him. So, side note, after he survived, he sued Howard Johnson's and got like $100,000 because they hung up on him the first time. Calls the second time to the front desk. This time, maintenance man comes in, finds him. They rush him to the trauma unit, and apparently, of all places to get shot, he picked a good one because they had a lot of shootings in the area, so they had some sort of cutting-edge trauma unit there. So, because they get a lot of practice.
And it goes back to that the bodyguard was a retard, because
yes,
if you walk in to kill somebody and you blast them 4 or 5 times, why not take a headshot?
Right.
I mean, put one down the nose, man.
Right.
Out the back of the head. I see you don't have a face anymore. The back of your head opens up. You're dead. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, the whole just shoot him in the body a couple times thing. I mean, it works a lot of the times, but I mean, if you're there to kill somebody, I mean,
Eddie
what
Nash,
are you doing, saving bullets? You know?
Yeah, Eddie Nash would have done a lot better having you as his hitman. Even you at the time when you're like 6 years old, you probably could have done a better job.
I'd have figured it out. I'm like, all right, 2 to the body, 1 to the head. Let's call it a day.
Certainly smarter. So he is in a coma for a month. Basically loses a month of his life in this coma. Comes out of the coma, beats all the odds, survives. Undeterred, he still wants to go to L.A. to reclaim his stardom. But he does realize that maybe now he's thinking what you were hoping he would think about before. Now he's thinking about it. And he's thinking,
they might not like me.
That's right. So he realizes he's going to need a little help. So here's the twist. He remembers that some years back when he was with Liberace, that Liberace would play theaters on the East Coast that were mob-owned. A lot of the old theaters back then were, and particularly in Boston. There was a mob-owned theater. It was owned by the Angulo brothers. And if you do any mob research or you go to the Mob Museum or you just look them up, these 2 brothers were big-time mobsters in the Boston area, the Angulo brothers. And one of them was named Jerry. And so years back when Liberace had played in Boston, Liberace played at Jerry Angulo's theater. And Jerry Angulo had a young autistic daughter, apparently severely autistic, didn't really talk, never really smiled, all that. And one night at the theater, Scott had asked Jerry Angulo if he could take his young daughter's hand and take her up to the stage to Liberace's piano and have Liberace play the piano for her. So he says, okay. Scott walks the little girl up there. She sits on the piano bench. Liberace plays a song for her, and she smiles. And Jerry Angulo, this hardened mobster who's killed no telling how many people, starts sobbing, weeping, and he says
he's a father.
Yeah, he had never seen his daughter smile before. And he just, it was the happiest moment of his life and all this. And he tells Scott, now I'm indebted to you. Anything you need, I owe you one. Yeah. So all these years pass.
A bad guy to owe one to, though.
Right. All these years pass. Scott wakes up out of his coma, and he remembers that. So he calls up to Boston. And, it was just like The Sopranos, where it's like, he's officing above a pizza parlor or something like that. That's where they're running the mob business out of. So Scott calls him up there and asks if he could come up there for a meeting. Now, keep in mind, mob guys aren't generally excited about talking to people who are in the witness protection program, but the guy agrees to it. So Scott flies up there. And he goes in, and Scott says, I don't know if you remember me. And Jerry Angulo says, I do. I remember. I know. I owe you. What can I do for you? And Scott says, well, there's, this guy, Eddie Nash, that wants to kill me, and he already tried once, and I want to go back there, and here's what's going on. And so Jerry Angulo looks to his guy to his left, who I believe to be Whitey Bulger.
I remember Whitey.
Yeah. And
Whitey's still in prison now. Did he die?
He's dead now, I believe.
He did die? Okay.
Yeah. Is he dead now? He's either dead or he's in prison.
I know he's in prison. He got caught getting his wife was getting her nails done or some shit.
Yeah, there was something like that. But at the time, here, I'll look it up right here.
Okay.
At the time, he is the right-hand man of Jerry Angulo.
Whitey Bulger's...
Yeah, he's the heavy. So he is still alive, by the way. Born in 1929. Oh, my gosh. He's getting up there. He is 88 years old. Is that right?
That's crazy. A guy lives a crazy life like that. He's going to
no
die
kidding.
of old age.
Yeah. So he is sitting to Angulo's right. And Angulo, here's just everything he needs to hear from Scott about the situation. And he looks to Whitey and he says, you know what to do. And with that, Whitey gets up from the table and they take Scott with them and one other henchman. And they go from the pizza place to Logan Airport, get on a plane, fly straight to L.A. They get in a car in L.A., and they drive straight to Eddie Nash's house. They get to Eddie Nash's house, and Whitey tells Scott, you wait in the car with henchman number 2, and then henchman number 1 and Whitey go up to the house. They come out 10, 15 minutes later, and they get in the car, and they start driving back to the airport. And Scott, of course, Scott being Scott, he has to ask questions. I mean, he can't just leave well enough alone. He's got to know what happened. So he asks him, oh, what happened? They get to a stoplight, and Whitey turns around and looks at Scott and says, I told him that if anything, you were coming back to L.A., and if anything happened to you, I'd kill him and every member of his family. And he turns back around and just keeps driving to the airport. So all these years, Scott goes back to L.A. and never had a finger laid on him because of that. So all those years passed by and nothing ever happened. I asked Scott how he knew instinctively to call in that favor, and how that was just like the first thing he thought of. And he goes, I knew these guys were serious. And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, this is a great part about Scott. His stories, there's so many of them that a lot of times he just forgets stuff. And you'll be talking to him, and it'll prompt a memory. And he'll go, oh, well, because there was, one time after Liberace's show in the theater, we went out to eat because Angulo liked Liberace and liked to, show him a good time and everything. And they're sitting in this Italian restaurant, and there's a guy like 2 tables over that is talking to whoever's at his table, but loud enough that everybody can overhear. He refers to Liberace as a fag. And Scott said it was very uncomfortable because Liberace's sitting there. I mean, it was loud. The guy was obnoxious, and everybody heard him. And he said before anyone could process really what happened, Whitey wheels around, grabs the guy by the back of the neck, and pulls a gun out from under his coat and shoves it in the guy's mouth and starts yelling, apologize to Mr. Liberace, apologize to Mr. Liberace. And he said the guy starts pissing all over himself. And says whatever, apologizes, and then skedaddles out the door into the night. So he's like, it made an impression. The way he tells the story is great, too, because apparently Liberace was wearing all white fur and started screaming that he was afraid there was going to be a gun blast and there'd be brains all over his white fur. So he was trying to calm the situation down. It's okay. It's okay. So that's Scott. And there's more stories like that.
That's cool.
We'll get him in here. He'll tell some. You can go watch the movie and see what I'm talking about. So anyway, I got to be a court witness this weekend. All right.
How did it go?
Well, we won't know for a week or two because the judge has to issue a written ruling. But Scott has been rescued his whole life. I mean, he grew up in foster care, so rescued by Liberace. I mean, Dennis Hoff rescued him, and he's just sort of lives this, in a weird way, a charmed existence because he goes through life and these people come along and kind of help him, and sure enough, because they were paying all our expenses like travel and all that, I was going to get reimbursed for the travel. And I walked out of the courtroom, and there on the bench in the hallway sat this diminutive, middle-aged, clearly gay Hollywood fellow wearing, this is what he wore to court, leather pants, a leopard spotted furry vest that went down to his knees, a ton of jewelry, and some just big old goggle glasses. And I asked Scott's attorney, I said, who's this? And he said, well, that's, Michael Starr, or whatever the guy's name was. He is helping Scott with his expenses for his trial, and he's going to take care of your reimbursement. And the guy motions me over. He says, step into my office, and we go down the hallway in the courtroom, and he pulls out an envelope, and he handed me 8 $100 bills. He's like, thanks for being here. And I rode the elevator down with Scott's probation officer that had testified for Scott, and I said, little weird that the gay dude just handed us cash when we got done. And he goes, yeah, it was weird. He goes, but then if you know Scott, it was oddly fitting. All right, Frank, tell everybody about that Amazon banner on the Phone Booth Fighting website, because we need people to pay particular attention to it now because it's a holiday season. It's time to start doing Christmas shopping.
True. If you do any of your Christmas shopping online and you're going to use Amazon, which most people do, use it through our website. You click on there, goes through the portal there. Any shopping you do for your Christmas gifts, any other needs or wants that you have, a small percentage at no extra charge to you comes back to us here at the show.
That's what you do. It's right there on the front of phoneboothfighting.com. You can also click on the store and get you one of our brand new Phone Booth Fighting t-shirts. We got multiple styles, multiple designs, all sizes and colors shipping now. Those will make excellent Christmas gifts for the Phone Booth Fighting listener in your life as well. All of that you will find at phoneboothfighting.com. Remember to subscribe to our podcast via iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, SoundCloud, or wherever podcasts are available. And if you go to our iTunes page, search Phone Booth Fighting, click on those 5 stars. That is tremendously helpful for us to give us a rating. And if you have a moment, write a favorable line or two. We like to read those reviews on the air. One more item of business, Frank. Tell everybody how they can find the show on social media.
Well, on Facebook and Instagram, you can check us out at Phone Booth Fighting, and Snapchat or Twitter, you can find us at Phone Booth Fight.
That's it. For Frank Muir, I'm Richard Hunter. Thanks for being a part of this one. We'll see you next time on Phone Booth Fighting.